and welcome to the Fixing Football Podcast. I'm your host Martin Naylor, and this week it's just me and Liam. We got into the subject of injuries this week. We've seen a lot coming on. We saw Kieran Trippier getting in the news about confronting a fan without consideration about the injuries that Newcastle are under at the moment, and we spoke about a lot of the Premier League results and how that is going to affect everything going forward. And believe it or not, we may have even fixed this one as well. Thank you everyone who's been listening so far. Please get in touch with us on YouTube. It would be great to hear your feedback on this one. We really appreciate all the comments and likes and shares and everything so far. It's really appreciated. Things are going good. We're starting to make plans for the rest of the season, so we've got a lot of cool things coming up, a lot of improvements. We're trying to improve everything week by week, so thank you very much. Thanks for listening, and let's get into the episode. Good evening, Liam. How are you doing, mate?
Very well, Martin. How you doing? You okay?
I'm alright, Paul. We've had a decent weekend in the FFP team. Almost perfect, but we'll get on to that. I want to start with Bolton. It seems we've almost broke the Derby curse.
Yeah, fantastic result. Now 6 wins on the spin now. We've hit our straps. It was a really close, hard-fought win. Really good atmosphere. Over 24,000 were there for it.
A great goal, wasn't it, as well?
Yeah, exactly. Just over 4,000 Blackpool fans, which helped the atmosphere. Yeah, it's good. We've missed that. That's one thing that we've really missed since our attendances are very strong this year. I think we've talked about this before, but we still don't have those big away followings. So that made a big difference to it. It was really tense game. Reminded me of us being in the Premier League to an extent, even though obviously.
Yeah. I believe Blackpool were quite in it, and I know it's a great win for Bolton, but Blackpool were in it quite a lot.
Oh, definitely. They're definitely one of the strongest sides in the league. It's a massive win. I'd be surprised if they're not at least in the playoffs at the end of the day, Blackpool.
So where are Bolton sitting now? Is it third still?
Third, but 1 point off the top, crucially. It's a very close top 3 now. And we do play both of them in the next few weeks as well, both Portsmouth and Oxford. So it's becoming a mini league of 3. I anticipate Oxford will drop off, but
just the squad size. I think Bolton are probably a bit more adept with that. They can probably manage injuries a little bit better.
And I think that if Bolton are in a position where it's 2 from 3, they will go in the market and take a little bit more of a risk than maybe Oxford would do, I would imagine.
Yeah, you'd like to. I bet there's some decent. You could maybe get Jadon Sancho might be a free agent in January. Might be able to get him.
Well, I think he might outlast Ten Hag is my prediction, so I think he'll be all right, Sancho.
I think that's his plan, to be honest. Arsenal had a great win. Did you see any of that?
Well, I can't remember who Arsenal played now.
It was Burnley. We beat Burnley 3-1.
Yes, well, I've seen the highlights.
Right,
you were playing I think you were Saturday 3:00 game this week, weren't you, for a change?
Yeah. You know what? That's 2 in a row. It's the first time in as long as I can remember that Arsenal played twice on a Saturday at 3:00. It was a great win. Great performance. Oh, Burnley are what they are. They're trying to play this way that is probably going to cost them their Premier League status, I predict. But they're still a hard team to break down. Teams aren't steamrolling them.
I got into it a few Burnley fans online over the weekend talking about this because they don't have to do that. I feel like Kompany is using Burnley here as a showcase that he is committed to playing that way, using his profile, the fact that he is Vincent Kompany and all the leadership things attached to him. And now he's saying that this is my only style, this is the only way I'll play. And if you look at how Dyche has turned Everton around, it's frustrating. For someone on the outside, I don't see why Burnley fans aren't more mad about it, because I would be.
Everton fans aren't mourning that they're now picking up points, are they?
Are they on what, 12th now, Everton?
They've picked up a few wins recently. I don't know exactly where they are, but yeah, this company is showcasing himself. I think you're right. It's going to be, unless things change drastically and they do start picking up points. Are they still without a win as well? Or have they picked up 1 win maybe?
I think it's 1 win. I think I might be wrong. I might be wrong. Either way, I mean, this bottom 3 this year, it's a joke really, to be completely honest. But we've covered that, and I don't want to just turn into a podcast. So I'm just slating Luton fans every week, because it's going to start getting on them anyway, so I don't need to be doing that.
Yeah. The next one, well, I was going to talk about. So you mentioned the bottom three, but it was more like a bottom four for a minute, and then Bournemouth picked up a good win this weekend. Bournemouth beating Newcastle.
Yeah, Bournemouth's a funny one, isn't it? Because they do have, on paper, a competitive squad.
Yeah,
and they
a Premier League squad. Yeah,
yeah, they stayed up quite comfortably last year under Gary O'Neill, and they brought in a manager, Iriola, who has a great reputation as a ball playing manager. I couldn't understand why they did that. I know they've had a lot of stick for letting Gary O'Neill go, and he's done relatively well at Wolves, but I couldn't understand why maybe they wanted their own man in and a long-term plan to build around that, similar to what maybe Brighton did with Potter. I think it's probably the idea that they've used there. But I was surprised at how poor Bournemouth were doing.
Yeah, but like you're saying, these ball-playing managers, they're an attractive quality for, when people are on the market for the next manager. They want to go to that style, and they'll always get work, really.
I think a lot of it is it helps you attract a certain type of player, because Bournemouth do have a bit of money behind them now. That's not necessarily to say that they're going to go out and spend tens and tens of millions on players, but they've got a pretty wealthy consortium, and they're not the most attractive prospect in terms of stadium and that type of thing. So they probably do need a manager that will allow players to express themselves on the basis that they can get a move elsewhere. I think that's probably how they see it.
Yeah, like we were saying about Brighton, over the last couple of years, they're a stepping stone club. No one's going to Brighton to achieve the dream of winning the Premier League or the Champions League, but they're going there to play good football and showcase themselves as well as the manager.
Yeah, and look, Brighton could easily win a trophy. They're that good now. Where they could win a trophy, whether that be. I think the problem is Europa League's probably too hard. Conference League may have been a bit. It's funny how that's working out a little bit now,
especially when the Champions League teams drop in as well.
Yeah, exactly. That's what makes that particularly difficult. But yeah, they're in a position, Brighton, where they could easily win a trophy.
And then
not easily, obviously not easily.
They're easily in a position where they could really struggle to win a trophy.
Yeah, they could beat Tottenham.
Yeah. Speaking of which, and you mentioned Gary O'Neill as well, but I think he's doing a really good job at Wolves. There's something about Gary O'Neill. He's just real, and I think he's found his level as well. I don't think he needs to strive for, the next Chelsea manager job or something like that as a big club.
He's at a big club, really.
Wolves are a big club.
Yeah, Wolves are a massive club. I think because they had a bit of a down period for quite a while. I think the generation above us sees Wolves as a top 6 club. Like they're a huge club with a huge fan base. He's got a very good job there. I mean, let's not forget who his predecessor was. Lopetegui was a Real Madrid manager, like Spain national team manager, like a serious guy. Like, so he's found himself, because of circumstance, like in a very good job, and he's making the most of it. I think with Gary O'Neill as well. I now remember the play. He played for Bolton not that long ago, and a brilliant player for us.
Yeah. How long did he have at Bolton? What, 2 years?
1 year. He did 1 year.
Yeah. Right.
I think he's 36, but he was the fittest player on the pitch. But I think whenever you hear him speak, it's how he's able to communicate that always comes across really well. I think a lot of people saw that Monday Night Football that he was on, and he was able to, and you can imagine that message getting across to his players in the same way, and that being a real benefit for him. He's got a talented squad to it with.
There's something about that, about being, and like we see with great players aren't always great managers. Sometimes it's the players who are in, a mid-level Premier League players go on to be the better managers, it seems, because they are just better at conveying the message. They might be saying the same thing as what Gary O'Neill might be saying, the same thing as what Steven Gerrard is, but it's just, the way it comes across and the way you deliver their messages just...
Well, this is a big thing about the Arsenal reign for Emery, isn't it? Like, his grasp of the language maybe was something that really held him back with that particular reign. Now, his English is a lot better now. Still not fantastic, but it's a lot better than it was. And is he then able, because he's such a detailed tactician, isn't he, Emery, that he's able to convey that message better to players now.
And they had that with Capello at England as well. I think he refused to even start learning English for the first couple of years. Even if you go back to then, no one can deny Capello's credentials as coming in as a manager.
Yeah, well, there's no point in learning English when you've got Carragher and Rooney talking back at you. You're wasting your time anyway.
Jeez. So, anyway, where was that? We were speaking about Gary O'Neill and Wolves, and they come up with a great win. 2-1 late on against Spurs. Did you see any of that as well? That was the early one this weekend.
Bits, because I was going to the Bolton game. So I saw the first half, and I saw the last 5 minutes. I was in the ground watching the last 5 minutes.
Wolves were fantastic, I thought.
Yeah, they're really dynamic, and that's without Neto, who's by far and away their best player.
Oh, he's a great player. I'd love him. I know we bid for him last January, but I'd love him at Arsenal.
Yeah, he needs to. His injury's not as bad as they feared, is it? The one he's got now. It was an
ACL, was it not? Or is he due back sooner?
I think he's due back. I don't think.
Oh no, sorry, no, it was a hamstring. It was a hamstring.
Yeah. Because they were worried. They were concerned, weren't they, with how he went down? But
yeah,
they've got quality across the pitch. Like, they've got Wang as well, who's a very good player.
He was doing good in Germany before he came, and then he had a bit of a bum season last year, didn't he? I think he only picked up a couple goals, but he's really stepped on it this season. Yeah, I like him.
Yeah. I mean, it can be quite tricky with a pace difference, because even though Germany is quite similar in terms of how the game's played, the Premier League is by far quicker than Germany. So you see that quite often. Like, Sancho looked like a 100-meter sprinter in Germany, whereas here he runs like he runs in treacle. So there's obvious issues with that.
There's only a few people who know what he's running like at the moment. The match of the weekend's got to be the Chelsea City match, and that was definitely a Premier League classic. I think Chelsea are just hitting a bit of form, and I say that they've come off a 2-2 with Arsenal, and then a 2-0 loss to Brentford, but then a 4-4 against City. And I don't know what you've made of them. I think Cole Palmer's settling in really well. Sterling seems to be turning it on a bit better. Jackson's finding himself in a lot of spaces. There's a lot of positive signs for Chelsea at the moment.
Yeah, I think settle is the right word. I think across the board, people are settling into their positions. They're becoming confident with where they are. And Reece James coming back's massive as well.
He's massive, yeah. He's so good.
Yeah,
I see him going to Real Madrid,
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. He can certainly play at the absolute top. Reece James is a fantastic player in that team as well. Like, such a huge leader. So adds values. I completely agree with what you're saying regarding the others. Cole Palmer particularly. Some signing him. It seemed a lot of money, but now it seems a snip at 40 million for a forward of that young talent. Yeah, he's a really good player.
He did well at the Euros where England won, the under-21s, and I thought he's really settling in. I know he's got all his goals have been penalties so far, but that doesn't really tell the story of how he's settled in. I know Scott's a big fan.
No, he's dynamic. He's keeping the ball moving up the top of the pitch, and other players seem to thrive off him.
City, I was guessing that he would be Mahrez's direct replacement at City. I don't think anyone saw this transfer coming, and especially how he would fit into that Chelsea side who just seemingly buy attacking wingers all the time at this point. So I'm impressed.
Yeah, it seems like they wanted Doku, and this money could be put to that. But for me, as good as Doku's brilliant, by the way, but it's left a little bit of a gap in that right wing position. Now, I know they like to play Foden there, but I'm not convinced that Foden in that position is anywhere near the level Mahrez was. So it feels like I think they've got weakness there now. Now, that's not me saying Foden's a poor player. He's not. But as a right winger, I felt Mahrez offered far more than Foden does.
Yeah, I definitely agree. He's just, that's someone playing in their natural position.
Yeah.
You could call them equally talented. I would say Mahrez is a fantastic footballer. And Foden, people have said he's a generational talent. I'm yet to be super convinced, but I do agree that he's a brilliant footballer.
Yeah, I think when you talk about generational talents, I think that is out the water now. We've seen what Bellingham is. That's what a generational talent looks like. Yeah. Bellingham and Musiala, a generational talent. Foden's a very, very good footballer. Yeah. But he's never really cemented a starting place in that City team.
No, and even even with De Bruyne out and Grealish not in the side and Mahrez leaving, there's still
one leaving.
Yeah, there's still no cemented spot for Foden, which is a concern. I sort of see where Gareth Southgate comes from with when and why he doesn't pick him in certain spots. So, so you like Doku as well? I think a friend of mine.
I think everyone would who doesn't like a winger that beats people. Like,
It gives me Saint-Maximin vibes. I think there's probably a bit more end product, and I don't know if that's because of his, because he's ended up at City. But there's just there's
him and Gordon that are doing it at the moment, and they're two of the most talked about players in the league.
That's true. And they're doing it. I can't argue with them. They both are doing it. So
yeah, and they're just beating players, and it's not something we see as much.
Yeah, who doesn't love that?
City, where it's those wing positions have been used for ball retention purposes a lot of the time.
We've seen Pep beat it out of Grealish, haven't we?
Well, this is what I mean. So to see someone at City doing it, it's been I think the last one was Martin Petrov who was doing that. So
mate of mine, Robinho. My mate of mine, a big shout out to JP sax player I play with a lot. He's a massive fan of Doku. He thinks he's like going to go on to be the next big thing, especially in, like, talk about Premier League for City. He's going to be the guy that guy for them. So for all the City fans I know, they're very excited. But 4-4 at Stamford Bridge, I mean, if you go anywhere and score 4 goals, you expect to win.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great game. It was. I think people talk about it being almost like a modern classic, a game where that had everything, and it was brilliant. I think most people weren't expecting it. They were expecting something attritional, and I think the last 4 times that City have been there, they've won 1-0. So I don't think people were expecting this open flowing game, because Pep tries to move so far away from any kind of chaos. But it just seemed. I think what really made the game was the fact that Chelsea really believed they could beat them, and wanted to beat them. Like, really took the game to them. And
I think a lot of that's coming from Poch.
Yeah, I think it shows City. I think teams do show City far too much respect. And I think that's what showed you if you don't do that, because this is a Chelsea team that we've talked about a lot with Scott that isn't anywhere near the levels they want to be at. But they've got talent, and they threw it at them.
Yeah.
And it was good. It was a great watch.
Makes me feel a bit better that we drew 2-2 with them as well. The fact that City have gone there and drawn. What I wanted to touch on this week, something that Kieran Trippier has been in the news for. So Tottenham and top 4 chasing Newcastle have been mourning a lot about injuries recently. Kieran Trippier was front and centre this weekend. That injuries, he's like, do you know how many injuries I've got? And everyone and his dog told him to shut the fuck up. But is it? I mean, you sympathise with them? Are these like under that much pressure, and injuries are a big problem in the game at the moment, or is it just a coincidental thing?
I mean, let's look at why Trippier's saying that. I mean, obviously Newcastle particularly hard. Yeah, I think they've got 12 players out with injuries at the moment.
Yeah.
And you're looking at some key players like Isak is the one that springs to mind. Harvey Barnes. There's some real influential players that are missing for them. So
plus Tonali as well. You wouldn't call it injured, but he's unavailable.
So they are missing some really important players, and they're playing twice a week for the first time in a lot of years, with obviously high-level Champions League games, which they've not. Yes, they had the PSG game, but they're probably going to be disappointed that they weren't able to lay a glove on Dortmund, I would think.
Yeah.
They should be doing that, really, for me. So I can understand where the frustration from Trippier has come from, especially when they're getting criticism from the fans when they're having a relatively good run of form. Newcastle in the Premier League, particularly, they're in, they're putting wins together. So obviously they've gone to Bournemouth and lost, and I can see why he's frustrated with regard to that. So that's probably where it's coming from for him. Across the board, it does look like there are more injuries.
There isn't a Premier League club who hasn't had a significant injury already this season, if not dealing with multiple right now.
I mean, why do we think that is?
Well, obviously the main culprit would be the amount of games. It's not no one's rolling their ankle on a dodgy surface in the Premier League. So we're not worried about that. We're not worried about travel. We're a small country in realistic.
They all fly now anyway.
Exactly. You're not travelling for more than 3 hours anywhere max in terms of a Premier League footballer. So that's fatigue in terms of that sense isn't an issue. The only thing that people point to is the amount of games that people are playing.
So so let's look at that then. The amount of games. It's not any different than any other season in terms of amount of games. And apart from the under-21 players, there was no international competition this summer. First time for a while.
Correct. So there was some internationals at the beginning and the end of each season. So the end of last season, the beginning of this season, right at the end.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll have that.
We'll call it four international matches.
So you've got more substitutes now. You can do 5 substitutes in a game.
Yep.
Squads are probably as big as they've ever been.
Yep.
Not many first team players play in the League Cup. I mean, Dummett's playing for Newcastle in the League Cup.
Yeah.
Paul Dummett. Steve Harper next. But so is it the amount of games?
Well, the type of injuries, and I don't know the actual breakdown of each one, but the type of injuries we're seeing are a lot of muscle tears, muscle pulls. ACL is a massive one, which is it's like an exaggerated twist in the knee. So, an ACL is caused by when a muscle, you pull a muscle or you tear a muscle when that muscle is fatigued. You don't see people who do yoga and that's pretty much it, pulling muscles all the time, because their muscles are healthy and they're stretched and they're well looked after. So an ACL is most likely to occur, an ACL injury, an MCL injury especially, is more likely to occur when the muscle and the joint is fatigued. Now, are they being looked after? I'd love to speak to a sports scientist more about this and maybe find out, and hopefully there's one listening and they can shed some light in the comments, which would be nice for us.
Yeah, useful people can come on the podcast. If you've not got a skill, then
this is an open invite to
we've got enough untalented people on the podcast. We don't need any more untalented. But if you've got sports science or something, then that's fair enough.
I'd love to know if that is the case, whether the overload is happening more so now. Teams are trying to get fitter. They're just trying to get that edge.
Yeah, this is where I think the problem lies. So when we're hearing a lot of top-end managers, and you've heard it for a long time, complain about fixture pile-up, I think the problem more lies with regards to training workload and pushing for marginal gains. I think this is where the problem lies. I heard Arteta 2 or 3 weeks ago. I don't know if he was joking or not. I don't think he was really with this, that he would like to see 10 subs.
Really?
Yeah.
I miss that.
Yeah, the idea that he can change the whole squad. Now, obviously, a lot of people will be not wanting that because the idea it will favour the stronger teams. But I think this comes from the idea of high-intensity 45 minutes rather than I think he genuinely thinks that would add value to the game. And there is a case for that. And I think with 5 substitutes, you're also seeing the emergence of a new strategy by some players who maybe aren't as high intensity, where this new term finishers is coming from.
Yeah.
It's something we saw a lot, and the idea of it really sort of hit me when I was watching the Women's Euros, the one where England's women won it. We had played like Alessia Russo, who for me didn't look like someone that they trusted for 90 minutes, but they wanted her to come in and impact it at the end. Yeah, and I'm seeing some managers use this concept quite a lot now. I think Bolton have Jon Darí Böðvarsson, who they're concerned about overworking. And essentially
super subs.
Yeah, and he coming in to make an impact every game.
Yeah.
Will not play more than 30 minutes. And I think this is something that's emerging quite a lot.
Yeah, I agree. It was something that Arteta was questioned on actually recently when we were speaking about Leandro Trossard.
Yeah.
About why he doesn't start so much. Emil Smith-Rowe is another one who falls into that category. Reece Nelson. These are fit, quick, skillful guys who can impact Arsenal, but whether they can do it over a 90-minute period or he trusts them more for the last 20 minutes is something that he considers a role. Is someone he considers them the last 20 minutes type of player.
Divock Origi is someone who comes to mind with this, where he's almost exclusively at any club he's been at, being in that role. Even now, he seems to be doing that.
Yeah, the most famous super sub, one of your mates, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
He was just shit. That was the difference.
He was, yeah. Let's not defend Ole. But yeah, like I say, you do make a good point that is a role that's coming into it. Do you think there's value in adding more substitutes, more players?
I see why. I just think the last thing we need is less flow to the game.
Yeah.
So I'm against it on that basis. I don't really like 5, to be completely honest. Just on that basis, but I do think it's improved the quality of the overall game, and it's allowing more players to play in the Premier League and contribute in the Premier League. I think it does obviously favour the big clubs that have bigger wage budgets. Of course it does, because when you look at players that are coming on for someone like Man City with 20 minutes to go, when you get your Bernardo Silva strolling on, it's completely different than maybe, Wisa coming on at Brentford or
Massively. Of course it is, yeah.
So
then players don't have the finisher tag role that you would get in a bigger squad, in a squad where you're bringing on a guy who's on £250,000 a week. So I agree. I do like the 5 subs. But most importantly, I like the fact that you can only do it in 3 slots. So it's like you can make 5 at once, and then that's always obviously all your subs gone, but you only get 3.
I just assume everyone's following that. I don't have a clue. Like, everyone could have not been doing that, and it would have gone completely over my head.
If you notice, that's why a lot of people make substitutions at halftime as well now. Is that counts as one of your slots, so you don't lose a slot as for a substitution time. You can still make a substitute at halftime and still have 3 more attempts at substitutions in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. That makes sense. That makes sense.
So we're looking at the amount of games that teams are playing, and we spoke about this when we mentioned the Carabao Cup, if the League Cup was still a viable, worthwhile watching trophy. And one of our fixes, which was, I think myself and Luke mentioned at the time, was that for the European teams to drop out of the League Cup, that would alleviate a selection of games. I mean, you're talking about alleviate at the most 6 games.
Oh, 1 game if you're Tottenham.
Exactly. I think they've took on this tactic early on. We must have a listener in Angie's team, but
probably not.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah. What do you think that is there a way we can get around? I don't know, the amount of games that people are playing. If load is the issue,
I'm not convinced it is, number one, but I suppose it does. It's just not like none of them are playing the first team in that. And I think a lot of the players that get the opportunity in the League Cup, and again, we sort of covered this before, and my view then was that a lot of the players are glad of the opportunity. And I sort of stand by that, really. I personally, I don't think that's the issue. I really don't think it's the amount of games.
So if it's not the amount of games, then these players need to be looked after better in training. Because how does a team like a Bournemouth or a Fulham go to Man City and genuinely compete? They're in the same league. Everything should start on a level playing field without being the fittest that they can be. These are professional guys on a lot of money. Without being the absolute fittest humans they can be, they can't compete on a skill level.
No, and this is, I've just got me thinking that I wish I'd done a bit of research into this, but is the amount of distance covered higher? Is the average running speed now higher than maybe it was 5 to 10 years ago?
Massively, yeah.
Yeah, we talk a lot about Pep's influence on the English game, but this is more the pressing style that Klopp has reinvigorated back into the English game, where everyone will either press, counter-press, or whatever its strategy that may be. Are players doing more in their games? Is it more the quality of work rather than the quantity, if you know what I mean?
I think they have to compete with the team like City. And I'll put Arsenal in that bracket.
I don't put them in that bracket.
They're teams who keep hold of the ball and dominate possession. And the only way that teams do break them down is by beating the press or counter-pressing them. and make it, City are better at it than Arsenal, and that's keeping the ball when you're dealing with these type teams who'll come, like a Wolves, for example, will come and pressure you all day long on that ball. But are they picking up more injuries because of it? I'm not sure if that's the exact case, but you're looking at teams like Newcastle and Tottenham, who are dealing with a lot of injuries respectively each. They're trying to assert that style, and maybe that's the reason why.
Yeah, so let's look at those two teams then. They're two quite interesting teams to bring up. So I'll start with Tottenham. That's a team with a new manager, completely changing the way they play, and
exactly.
it does include a lot of pressing, and it is a very high intensity way of playing. I've saw it a lot of Celtic, so that's case number one. So there's a marked change in how they're playing, and some of those players weren't necessarily first choice under previous managers either, so their workload has dramatically increased.
Right.
Secondly, you've got Newcastle, and obviously it's pretty well known now that they play this sort of horrible, aggressive brand of football, a la Atletico Madrid, Simeone style that Eddie Howe has adopted there, which I imagine does take it out of the body. It simply must do. It's horrific.
That's been one of the criticisms of Simeone's teams about them falling away. In the majority, other than the couple, I don't know if it's once or twice under Simeone they've won the league.
I think it's twice.
Yeah, the rest of the time they've not had poor seasons. They've just fallen away, and this is due to the fatigue build up. They do keep quite a consistent squad, and the fatigue is just it's just too much for a lot of squads to deal with.
So I think we're not science people, man. I think people know that about us. Right?
Not science people, correct?
So I think we've cracked this. So I think we know what the issue is now. So what do we do about it?
So, Doctor, I think the next I don't know what we could do. I think these are some of the. I would suggest that these Premier League clubs need to look after their assets a little bit better, and I don't know how that looks to each club, because I'm sure they've all got fantastic physios and sports scientists and therapists and God knows what else. But clearly there is some sort of mini crisis going on to the point where someone like Kieran Trippier is going, look at how many injuries we've got.
Yeah. So we've agreed on a few things in previous podcasts. That number one, the teams at the bottom of the league are stinking the place out. We've all agreed on that, haven't we?
It's true.
Yeah, so they're stinking the place out.
Absolutely barking them. Lots.
Number two, it's not that there is too many games. It's just that players having to work harder and maybe the bodies can't handle it. So we're agreeing on that.
Yeah.
So if we do play less games, that will help.
I think that's the general consensus, yeah.
So what if we go down to 18 teams? We increase the quality of the league. We play less games. The same amount as the Bundesliga, by the way. That's 18.
Yeah,
maybe you can include you can maybe have your winter break that everyone wants to have. I personally wouldn't do that. I'd just have little breaks here and there.
Well, that's the thing as well, coming up to festive period, which is notoriously absolutely criminal for the amount of games that people would have to play.
Exactly. Maybe take one or two out of that. Doesn't need to get rid of the festive period. Just take maybe one or two of the games out of
it. Yeah.
Maybe get rid of that FA Cup weekend just after. Maybe have a
kill of that, innit?
Yeah, a kill switch maybe for that game, right? And we go down to 18 teams in the Premier League.
I don't like the idea, but I don't know why I don't, because you've made a lot of sense here, and I'm trying to work out why I don't like it.
It feels like we're messing with traditions, but Premier League isn't that.
I think that's it. I think that's it. We're tampering with something that is fundamental to.
And did it start at 18?
No, it started at 22.
22, the other way around.
Yeah.
Fixing Football podcast, everyone. Top knowledge here. So
not science people.
Not science people. So yeah, I think that kills a lot of birds with one stone, and it stops teams like Luton getting in and stinking the place out. One up, one down.
You're just thinking of how we get rid of Luton.
One up, one down.
What? No, I don't like one up, one down.
No, I don't like one up, one down.
I do. Oh, why am I agreeing with you here? I'm trying to work it out. I think it's the traditionalist in me trying to think out loud here that it shouldn't go down to 18, but you might be right.
Yeah, it solves everything. That or more subs.
Who else? Luton and Sheffield.
Well, that takes us down to 18, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I get rid of Burnley as well. Make it 17, actually.
Anyone else? You're not a fan of Everton either, are you?
Yeah, Everton. Nah, look, one of our listeners, and I don't want to upset all of them that we've got. So apparently we've been a bit too harsh on Everton, and it's probably right. So
yeah, we just don't like them that much, and it's not because of the team or Sean Dyche. It's because of the fans.
It's because of you, listener.
It's because of you. No, you're right, and in fact, you're on your own on that one because I said Everton are a big club, and I'd like to see what their stadium looks like.
I wasn't on my own. I think Scott agreed with me and Luke. So I think you did. I think you're just backtracking. I think we're pretty unanimous in that.
Right. Okay. Right. Sorry, Everton, you've got to go. We're down to 16 teams, and no one's gonna. We're gonna sort
groups of 4 then. For like a. Anyway, but yeah.
No, we digress. But listen, I don't hate the idea, and maybe we fixed it. I would like to get people's feedback on this because I think it's quite contentious. You could argue that it limits opportunities. You're not going to see a team like Luton come up when you, you concentrate the quality into lesser teams. So there's just less of a pool to get into, and then what you add a team to. That you add 2 teams to the championship.
There's a load of other things that you would do to make this sweeter and to make sure that quality trickles down the league. So you would look again at the parachute payments because you're essentially limiting opportunity and things like that. So there are a number of different things that you would look at to try and make this palatable and make it fairer and make it work. It is quite obviously an issue, especially when there's so many ACLs. And
the ACL one's a big one because the season ending. It used to be a 2-year job, and now we've got it down to about 6 to 9 months, depending on the severity. But we got Jurrien Timber picked up one, and it's an interesting one because he was obviously new to the club, new to the team, and you could say that, like some of these other players, he's new to a different style of training, and just that extra load has done him in.
Yeah, obviously just off the back of a pre-season.
Yeah.
Which I can't imagine is pleasant.
No, especially with the amount of travelling that these guys do as well. It's just more and more when you're talking about the pre-season tours. So you might be right. I think we reluctantly have fixed this. But
yeah, see, we're on a roll now.
We're on a roll. I would really like to get people's opinion on it because the traditionalist in me is saying one thing, but Dr. Liam O'Meara seems to make a lot of sense here. The non-science guy. So yeah, well that's good. We'll have to think of something to talk about next week because I'm running out of ideas now. We are running out of ideas. We'd love to hear people's opinion if there's anything pressing that you feel would be interesting for us idiots to talk about. There's a lot of things that we have got planned coming up for the next couple of weeks and coming season. So please stay tuned, stay liking and subscribing and join in with us on Twitter wherever you can. We're always active on there. We're active on Instagram, so get in the DMs. If you want to drop us a comment on YouTube, that would be lovely. Liam, have you got anything to add?
No. Thanks, Martin. Nice one.
Appreciate it. We've got England coming up this week, so it's going to be a really boring week, and we're really going to find something to talk about. So please get in the comments and let us know. I appreciate everything. Is at www.fixingfootball.com, fixingfootballpodcast.com. I've not said that enough times, obviously. But thank you, everyone. Liam, I'll catch you soon, brother.
Farewell. Goodbye.